it's not been practical to totally replace soybean meal because the diet ultimately may become impractical to use. And depending on the amount of these alternative protein feedstuffs that you use, you may also begin to see a deterioration in growth performance.
Hello and welcome to the Poultry Nutrition Blackbelt. I'm your host, Pratima Adhikari from Mississippi State University. As a process of providing a very recent and cutting edge talk conversation in nutrition, we have Dr. Oluyinka Olukosi from University of Georgia at our episode today. Dr. Olukosi, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Dr. Adhikari. Thank you for inviting me.
We're very glad to have you today. And Dr. Olukosi is currently an associate professor at University of Georgia, where he works a lot of exciting things about poultry nutrition. So, as a part of the conversation, we're going to introduce you, and if you want to share a little bit about your professional background and anything happening in the lab.
All right, thank you very much for that. I would just like to mention my career started in United States. Well, my career in United States started about 21 years ago when I came to study for my PhD. Prior to that, I'd done the master's and bachelor from Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria. So after a PhD and 2-year postdoctoral, I started my first faculty position in Scotland. I was with at that time it used to be called Scottish Agricultural College. Now it's called Scotland's Rural College, where I continued my work on poultry nutrition, training PhD master's student. And then about 7 years ago, I moved back to the United States, joined the faculty of Department of Poultry Science, University of Georgia. So glad to be here today.
Thank you for sharing those experiences. We're going to learn a little bit more on the research side and what you have been doing recently, a couple of years about the reduced protein side of the things. So if we can deep dive into some of the recent experience that you can share with us about the reduced protein diets.
So with regards to the work in the reduced crude protein diet. Actually, my first work along that line was about 13 years ago. I did some reduced crude protein diets in swine. But because my work, both as a PhD, as a postdoctoral, and my first works as a faculty in Scotland centered around the use of phytates, reducing phosphate excretion in the environment. Looking at nitrogen is just a natural way to look at things because that's another nutrient that is lost significantly into the environment. So when I first looked into that in swine, my interest was to look at digestibility of different protein feedstuffs in adequate or reduced crude protein diets. But with regards to the work that we've been doing recently in broiler chickens specifically, we've been looking at the use of reduced crude protein diet using different feedstuffs, because historically, most of the studies that you see around on reduced protein diet has concentrated around corn soybean meal. Perhaps because most of these studies are coming from United States. But in other parts of the world, there are other feedstuffs that are used. And I was especially interested in the protein feedstuffs, whether we're looking at corn soybean meal, or we partly replace soybean meal with canola meal or with corn DDGS. Clearly, the selections are endless, but we focused specifically on canola meal and corn DDGS as alternative protein feedstuffs. And along the line of reduced crude protein diet, we are also looking at the possibility of studying functional amino acids. Because whereas we look at amino acids, we all know they are building blocks for protein, but we know that they also have other functional roles that they play, either in immune system or in antioxidant system, and so many other ways that they can be used. So those are some of the ways that we've been looking at reduced protein diets in recent context.
That is exciting. And of course, when you throw into different protein sources that are not just corn and soybean, a meal based diet, but as you said, canola or wheat based, then you see different amino acid come into the role and not just helping them in the performance side of the things, but also helping, all the way at the gut level where you have immune functions being more activated with some levels and whatnot. In your experience, if you can share, like what kind of range of these lower amino acid that you have seen coming into the play when you are going away from a corn and soybean meal? Can you think about like lower line of our amino acid? What are they?
So now, I would first like to say that we are not completely replacing soybean meal with canola meal or corn DDGS. Trying to do that will actually, in reduced protein diet, is impractical. And the more you reduce soybean meal from the diet, the more you have to add other amino acids, because we know there has not been another comparative plant protein feedstuff that can replace soybean meal that has the same profile of amino acids. So as you reduce the crude protein, definitely when you reduce the crude protein, you add extra amino acids anyway. But then when you also now remove some soybean meal and replace either with corn DDGS or with canola meal, you are adding a few other essential amino acids into the mix. So um, it's not been practical to totally replace soybean meal, because the diet ultimately may become impractical to use. And depending on the amount of these alternative protein feedstuffs that you use, you may also begin to see a deterioration in growth performance. You have deterioration in growth performance when you have it, depending on how much protein you reduce, you're going to have some deterioration in growth performance, even in soybean meal diet. It's been difficult to find a diet, a reduced protein soybean meal, when you have maybe 3 or 4% reduction, that does not result in a reduced growth performance. But when you now also take away soybean meal in that context and replace with either canola meal or corn DDGS, you have further deterioration in growth performance. Um, you know, and the response that you have from different feedstuff differs. There have been occasions where you see reduction with 10% DDGS, which replace about 5% soybean meal. Or you have in the case of canola meal, where we add up to 8%, reducing about 4 or 5% of soybean meal. So you have reduction in performance under such, in that scenarios as well. Yeah.
Feed formulation software is stuck in the past. Most tools haven't evolved beyond basic least cost optimization. A Diet Forge changes that. It's an AI-powered platform with nonlinear ingredient modeling for enzymes and additives, cost per gain and maximum profit optimization, and real-time collaboration like Google Docs for nutrition. Every recommendation is grounded in world-class research, built for modern nutritionists who need more than legacy desktop software can deliver. Work seamlessly with your team and optimize the way modern operations demand. Try dietforge.ai free today. Feed formulation, finally modernized.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree on that. And as we're thinking about here, more feed stuff and different type of feed stuff and low protein diet, in your experience with the research and other stuff, have you seen any differences in those margins between your starter phase and finisher phase? Or, it's going to be the same across the phases as long as we have these all protein met. And, when we are going away from, let's say 20% or 23% crude protein to maybe 18% with still a corn soy diet, let's say, how do you think the birds adapt better, like in a starting to adapt right away, or do you see more of the benefit in the finisher side?
You know, definitely when you have reduced protein, and I think some of this is reduction in protein itself. When you have reduced protein diet, irrespective of what feedstuff you use, in early age, you are going to have a deterioration in performance. Um, Obviously, birds are better able to tolerate a lower protein at a later age. And clearly, the effect that these alternative protein feedstuffs will have on performance, if we look at negative effect, it's going to be less in later age, simply because the birds are better able to tolerate what you're feeding at that time. Now, what's going to be important to keep in mind is, and it's something that we're interested in looking at, going forward. It's the possibility that you can use different uh, inclusion levels as well as different levels of reduction in crude protein at different phases. The thinking behind that being that, one, when are the birds consuming the most? And consequently, you are able to reduce excretion more. It's when they are older, they are consuming a whole lot more feed when they are older. And consequently, if you're able to reduce crude protein without negative effect at that point, that will be significant for the environment. And you will not be penalizing growth performance in early age when they need this balance of amino acids even more than they do when they are older. Now, if I might add this, which is my opinion on this matter, really. Um, Looking at the results, and we have a lot of inconsistency when you look at the effect of reduced protein across literature. Some have reported benefit in terms of performance. Most have reported either none or a negative effect. But I think that the factors that have been reported to be considered if you want to use a reduced protein diet, it's so many that trying to fit all of them into an experiment becomes almost impossible. But I think as time goes on, even though we may not be able to see immediate results, or we may not be able to see the immediate benefit from this, we might be looking at what's going to happen in the future. Because historically, we've been able to reduce crude protein in the diet. You know, as we move away from formulation of diets on the basis of crude protein to formulating on the basis of total amino acid, and then to formulating on the basis of digestible amino acid, we've been able to progressively reduce the amount of crude protein that we add in the diet. And although we are getting into obstacles as we try to reduce further right now, I'm sure that in the future it will be possible as we study more and we have more ideas, new ideas coming into how we can apply such diets in practical poultry production.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Olukosi, for your great insight into the reduced protein diet and how we should, as a group of nutritionists, should navigate to feed this bird. Thank you again for coming to the program. And all right, I will see you later and maybe in the poultry science meeting.
Yeah, I look forward to that. Thank you very much for having me today.
Sure, you're welcome. Thank you. Bye.